Welcome everyone to another record. All right. We gotta remember that. Last time we missed the best 10-minute part of a talk. We don't want to do that with Dustin. He wouldn't let us hear the end of it. You would demand a redo, wouldn't you?
First 10 minutes is going to be you, Akram.
No. 10 minutes of the actual presentation. Yeah. So welcome everyone. Welcome to SciJug. I see some new faces. We love to see new people joining and some familiar faces. Glad to see you all. We're just gonna take about 5 minutes, let people know what SciJug is about, what we do, that kind of stuff, and then introduce our dear friend Dustin here, who was kind enough to volunteer for a presentation. Can you do me a favor and yep. Won't that be great? So SciJug, we're just a volunteer-led group, meetups. We're here to learn, teach, share, network, and everyone is welcome. If you're interested in giving a talk, we're more than happy to have you. It doesn't have to be an hour talk. We can do 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. We got a variety. So the most important thing is you come in with your passion, what you want to talk about, and that's more than enough for us. Topics, anything software development related. If it's about Java, that'd be nice, but it's not a must. We want to give a shout out for one of our sponsors, the No Fluff Just Stuff Symposium. They're coming to town September 5 to 6. You can get a $100 off your registration when you use the code on the screen. So we highly recommend this one. They were kind enough to fly in one of their presenters. He gave a great talk here, and the whole lineup for the conference is pretty great. So highly recommend. We're going to have a JetBrains raffle towards the end. So if you haven't done so, you can write your name and drop it in that golden bucket. And we can see who's going to win today for a year of JetBrains. So today we have Dustin joining us.
Say the last name?
Thostenson? Thostenson. Isn't that right? Yeah. I got my Nordic knowledge, you know. All right. So we're gonna Dustin. Dustin is an independent consultant, leading Delta 3 Consulting. He's been a developer, a mentor, trainer, and agile coach for decades. His passion lies in helping people grow and teams deliver. To keep things interesting, he helps lead the Iowa.net user group and volunteers in Central Iowa. We'll try not to hold it against you, but no. The .net folks, they're all dear friends to us. So yeah, highly recommend you check out their meetups too. They got a lot of great talk. And today he's here to talk about technical debt. Should I read the introduction or is it gonna ruin it?
We'll get into it.
You're going to get into it, right? All right, awesome. So without any further ado, is yours.
Thank you. I'm assuming this is still good for online. Should be good.
Great.
There we go. Yeah, so we'll just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Yes, I am part of the Iowa.net user group. No, this is not a .NET specific talk. We do have code samples, and the code samples are actually in Java, so we got that going for us here. It's probably 6. Oh, I wasn't sure if that was my pointer or the other one. All right, so we've got a talk here, techniques to tackle tech debt today. 3 bonus points for anybody who is thinking alliteration. You're correct. And there we go. All right, so my shocking opener here, Akram was asking if this talk was going to be based on if I needed to see the speaker notes, and I said no. I've been giving this talk quite a bit, and it's something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. But I told Akram, it's partially going to be that, and partially just kind of make things up as we go. And anybody ever do any electrical work at home? Yeah, we moved into a new place 7 years ago, I think now. And I remember when I first started to walk into the closet, I had that John Travolta moment where I was just kind of looking around because I was used to the lights coming on. Or when I'd walk into a room and the lights were still on, I was used to them having turned off because I'm lazy. So when we moved in, I was like, all right, I need light switches, the room sensors in all the rooms, and um, our fuse boxes in the garage. So I have to like go all the way up and hit the fuse and come all the way back. And I was like, it's really just a couple of wires, right? So if you, yeah, you know where this is going. You pull this switch out and there's a black wire and a white wire and the ground wire. And as long as they don't touch, you're okay. And I think I electrocuted myself about a dozen times in the span of a couple of weeks because I found every way to screw that up. And sometimes they'd have a little bit of spring in them. Sometimes the screwdriver would go the wrong way. You shock yourself. You don't have to worry about turning the fuse off anymore. Um, and yeah, I was kind of going through that process and I was thinking to myself, like, I am choosing to be an idiot here. This is my choice. But I wouldn't expect anybody else, like in my real job, to tell me, you don't have time to do things right. You don't have time to do that. Just cut the corners, get it done quick. Like, there's no way I would have hired an electrician and told him, you don't have time to turn off the fuse. And ultimately, I think that really what it comes down to is professionals are hired to act like professionals. And that's really kind of one of the main things I want to start this talk off with is we get paid enough. We work on some really hard things. We are professionals. And yet sometimes we're put into situations where people tell us how to do our jobs and they expect us to cut corners and not act like professionals. And then we have all these problems that show up later. Now, a funny little addendum to the story is my daughter was complaining about our basement. The three-way light switches didn't work right. 7 years. I put tape on one of them so she just wouldn't hit it, but eventually she started to hit that. So I finally, earlier this week, I finally fixed the switches with the three-ways. It was 2.5 hours. Chat GPT, Google, I was looking for everything. I'm like, I got a white wire, a red wire, a black wire, and that ground. And there's 4 wires on each. I mean, the ground is obvious, but I just kept going back and forth. But this time, I was looking at that bug being a feature. Instead of me saying, I don't have time to go shut the fuse off, I was looking at my watch and I was trying to hit my step goals. So I thought, all right, I got a feature here. I have the ability to go up and down. So 2,500 steps and 7 flights of stairs later, I finally got the light switches correct, which means even an old guy like me can still learn. So I started to act like a professional here. Big concept of the talk here. Your tech debt is slowing your ability to deliver. I'm not going to get into all the details about tech debt. I'm not going to get into deep conversations about the actual definition of it. I'm just saying, in a very general way, all the teams I've worked on, everybody talks about tech debt. Agile transformations, digital transformations, cloud transformations. There's all these things that we try to do, and there's a lot of really cool ideas about all the awesome stuff that we could do with these new technologies and these new processes. But every time I've seen people try to change, this tech debt thing just keeps getting in the way. So as I've had a lot of different roles, I'm still primarily a technologist. I never got away from the development. But at this point, I kind of think of myself as a full systems developer. I'm not just looking at the code, I'm looking at all the things that kind of impact our ability to do some awesome things. So the big problem here is that this cost of change is just too damn high. We have all these problems and all these shortcuts that we take. And when you start off, this blue line here, the optimal cost of change, yeah, those first few lines of code, They go really well. We can get something into production in a month, everything's going good. And over time, you know that things are going to take a little bit longer to get done. But when you start having up all these tech debt things, every cost of change keeps increasing. It takes longer and longer to make these simple things work. As that increases, our ability to meet the user's needs and with predictability really starts to drop off. Does this resonate with anybody? Anybody else notice this? So when I'm working with teams or if I'm given a project, I really think like, what is it that I should be able to do in this code base or this tech stack? And what's really happening? How much waste do we really have? And unfortunately, a lot of times it is just not visible. People can feel it though. So I do have a QR code if people wanted access to the slides. Granted, I don't have the side jug logo on top. I grabbed it from Denver a couple of weeks ago. The .NET logo is not on there, so we should be compliant here. Actually, hold on one second. I did forget. I did want to take a moment and share some appreciation for Source Allies for hosting as well. Source Allies, even with the .NET user group, been a great sponsor. I'm really glad we've got people together. When I talk to new people, I tell them, get involved with your community. This stuff is so important. I'm glad we've got companies like Source Allies really supporting it. This talk is about the hard and the soft topics that we should be thinking about when we're dealing with these tech debt issues. How many developers have we got in the room? All right, product owners, scrum masters, managers. Okay. There are things that we can do ourselves, so we'll be talking about those, the hard topics and the soft topics. There are things that we can do for our team. There are things that we can do for the stakeholders. So in my experience, the tech debt problem is not just one simple fix. There is not one JetBrains product you could buy to fix it. And I love JetBrains, but it's not there yet. So we're going to talk about a lot of things. Hopefully there's some things that you recognize that you go, yep, I can do this immediately. And maybe some other things you can start kind of leading that roadmap to say, let's take care of this and let's make everybody's lives a little bit better. So the first thing is we start with ourselves because that's the only thing that we can control. What is it that we can do? As I've talked to teams over and over, they go, Dustin, we'd love to do all these things. We'd love to scrum so hard, but we got all this tech debt. And I said, okay, cool. Well, what have you done so far? Where are we? And I see this a lot. People don't even know where to start. You know, my job is to write if statements and for loops. It's somebody else's job to take care of this. It's like, well, let's see what we can do first and at least try some things. I've been an independent consultant for 18 years. And one of the things I love about that is I figure as I'm going to different clients, I have the freedom to try new things out. I have the freedom to try stuff. And if it doesn't work, I get to leave all those failures at the old client and I get to bring all the learnings to the next client. I'm not worried about trying something and having it fail where my career path is going to be cut off. They're, oh, Dustin screwed that one thing up, so let's get rid of him on the director list. Another thing to kind of think about, Jerry Weinberg. If you don't know Jerry Weinberg, fabulous, fabulous person. No longer with us. His writings are wonderful. And he says things like this: things are the way they are because they got that way. And you're probably thinking about Sherlock right now, right? It's simple, but it's true. When we see things are bad, it is what it is. I mean, yeah, we can do a lot of blaming. We can call people idiots, whatever. Not helpful. There's probably things that happen. It is what it is. We are here today. We get choices about the future. What are we going to do with that? That first thing is to really choose improvement. And this sphere of influence has been a very important model for me. In the middle are the things that we can control. In that blue circle, that's our circle of influence. That's the area where we might be able to influence somebody else to help us out. And outside of that is our circle of control or of concern. I've run this experiment at clients where we would put this on the board, we'd take a bunch of sticky notes, and we would ask the managers, here are a bunch of things the team can do. Can the team decide what they're going to work on this sprint? Can the team decide what their name is? Can the team decide how the bonuses are being paid out? Right? Like, what are the things that the team could do? When we would ask the managers that, they would put a bunch of stuff right in the middle. Yeah, that's something the team could do. We'd clear the room, bring in the developers, ask them the same thing. I can write if statements and for loops. That's about what the developers thought they could do. I can't pick our name. I can't change our design patterns. I can't do this. I can't do that. They would push everything out, assuming that they needed permission to make any kinds of changes. So there's just a huge disconnect between what the leaders expected the team to do and what the teams thought they could do. And just by bringing that up was pretty important, because if you're asking people to make a difference, they have to believe that they have that control to do it. So for yourself, do it. Get in there, make the changes. Wait until somebody tells you that you can't. And if you're doing things well, that's probably what they really want. They might not know enough to tell you exactly how to do your job. So if you see things, try to make those investments until you're told you can't. Because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Occam's probably going to be grabbing this. I'm throwing his name on here now. And I know I'm getting into some of the softer topics here, but for me, this mindset stuff is extremely important. Is anybody familiar with the responsibility process? Oh, great. Yeah, well over half the room. When I was out at John Deere, Tim Gifford had shared this with us. Probably the most impactful thing I've learned in my career for my professional and my personal life. I've taken Dr. Avery's courses, read the books. This is amazing stuff. And I'm not going to get deep into it. We could have an entire session on it. But the basic idea here is our brains go through a process. Whenever we're trying to go from A to B and something gets in our way, we start doing things in our head. And this happens every time. The stories we tell ourselves follow a pattern. The first thing that happens when things aren't looking good is denial. Conscious or unconscious. Maybe you don't recognize it's a problem. Maybe you tell yourself, it'll be fine. Are we gonna hit that deadline at the end of the month? Yeah, of course we are. We don't hit the deadline. Lay blame. Well, it's because Dusty didn't get his job done on time. It's because Josh screwed up the terraforms again. All of the reasons that we cannot get where we want to go are outside of us. It's because of all these other people. Once you're done looking outside of the things that you have absolutely no control over, once you're done looking at all these reasons why things aren't going the way you want, you start to justify. Yeah, it always is that way though. I mean, we never hit our deadlines. We're always late. The environment here doesn't work. QA can't do it. We didn't get good requirements, blah, 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 right? You start telling yourself stories about why it's okay that you failed. These are red because these are negative things. They're not helping you solve the problem. Eventually, you start getting up into shame. If you're done justifying all the reasons that you can't have things the way you want them, you start thinking about shame, which is really just blaming yourself. I'm such an idiot. I didn't think about that edge case. I didn't assume that we would have 0 records coming back. I didn't assume we'd have 2 records coming back or 2 million records. So you're blaming yourself for not being smart enough, for being human, for making mistakes. And sometimes we quit after that. I'm an idiot. I didn't get it done. Maybe you get up to obligation where you have that have to, don't want to mindset. I'm going to work all weekend. I'm going to come in at nights. My team deserves better. I'm going to do the right thing, but for the wrong reasons. So you're not feeling good about it, but you're still trying to do what you can do. Eventually, when you get above that line into responsibility, it's not responsibility like accountability. It's responsibility as in ability to respond. When you're looking at whatever mess you have in front of you, you get to make the choice, how do I want to see this better? And when you can see the spot that you want to be, now you have a choice. And it doesn't mean that you're going to make a choice that's not going to have any consequences. If my wife wants to go to the opera, which would never happen, but if she wanted to go to the opera, I have a choice. I can say, yes, I'll go because I have to. Or I can say, I'm going to go to the opera because it would make her happy and I like seeing her happy. Or I can say, Iowa State's playing in Dublin. I kind of want to watch that game. And I know that I'm going to be sleeping on the couch for it, but that's still the choice that I get to make. So please just kind of think about this, like the choices we make. If any change is going to happen, it's going to start with you individually, the way you look at the problem, and the choices you make to move forward with it. I wish I could say that there was a beautiful new agile framework that comes out and it solves all these problems. It's not there. And I'm not going to get into this too much, but I like this framing. I'm working on a book with Skylar Watson called Modeling Better Decisions. And models like this are really helpful for me to figure out how do I frame a situation. If I have high will and high skill, I'm going to get stuff done. If I have high will and low skill, I need to do some work. I've got a laundry list of things that I'm going to be doing with AI at home. I've got all these things I want to test out. Let me see what really works. Let me try some different things on it. I might not have that skill yet, but I have the will, so I'm going to work on it. If I have the skill and I don't have the will, not much is going to happen. And if I don't have the will and I don't have the skill, forget about it. Right? So this is good for ourselves. It applies to the people that we work with as well. We can help these people. This is a different problem. All right, so we're talking about tech debt. So the first rule, if you find yourself in a hole, quit digging. Do you recognize you're in a hole? Well, let's start talking about how to identify when we're in a hole. Martin Fowler here. I worked with one team. They said, anybody who quotes Martin Fowler, we immediately disregard them. Like, this guy is full of it. Code smells are symptoms of poor design or implementation choices. So, how does this make you feel, Java 6? All right, show of thumbs. This is great code, horrible code, somewhere in between. All right. Not so good. Why? Specifically, what about this is not great? They all have the same interfaces? Yep. So I stole this from Industrial Logic. Cecil should have been here. He would have been happy to see this. Actually, Cecil has done work on this, if you guys all know Cecil. Industrial Logic has some training. I used to work with them. I would do the trainings in the morning just because even after 2 decades, I was learning stuff. They've given all those smells names. So now when I look at that code, I can see we've got duplicate code here. These if blocks are pretty much the same thing. Akram, very nice work. Alternative classes with different interfaces. We've got the possibility of a switch statement, some inappropriate intimacy, refused bequest. we're including a method just because it's part of the interface. Well, maybe the interface doesn't need that method if it's not globally applicable. Point being is, when I started doing this more, I wasn't trying to communicate with my team how I felt, because they didn't care. All right, because now you're puffing up your chest and you're saying, yeah, but my feelings are more important than your feelings because I've been doing this 13 months longer than you. But when you make it objective and you can see these things, you know, here they call it get element at, here they call it get. Does it really need to be different? Once you can start identifying these things, you get to have objective conversations. And now, if you get into one of Josh Karievsky's book, shoot, I'm forgetting the name of it already. Refactoring to patterns. He's got a cheat sheet here. Here are all the different code smells you can see. And then he took some of Martin Fowler's work, patterns, and he says, when you see that, implement this refactoring. Refactoring to patterns. So now you've got kind of that trigger and response. So if you know what you're looking at, you could say, oh, when I see this, I do this. And it might not always be that quick, but you know, if you see, we got a lot of comments, well, what if we just renamed the method so the method made more sense? There we go, refactoring to patterns and working effectively with legacy code. Funny story about Michael Feathers. He learned some really good things about refactoring, working with legacy code, and he got tired of people asking him about it all the time. So he's like, I'll just write a book so you can leave me alone. And now his entire career has been tied to that yet, but it's fabulous stuff. Another example, sometimes I skip over this one, but since I'm in a friendly room here, I think about this one a lot. Temporal coupling. When I look at the code, I can hear the product owner and the scrum master telling the developers what to do. You need to do this, and then do this, and then do this, and then, and you look through that code, and it's just a bunch of steps where we're reaching out. I got to go here, I got to go here, I got to go here. If you've got a loose coupled, bless you, a loosely coupled system, highly cohesive, you don't have them tied together. You've got the responsibilities tied up pretty well. So if I have to log in, fine. Let me do my login stuff here. If I need to, you know, get my roles, I can grab that over here. Maybe we don't need to tie it up in every single line of code. I mention this because this is probably one of the biggest things I see in the code. And it's not how the code is doing it, it's trying to think, what is the code really doing? So if we could start to split things out into some more natural chunks, all of a sudden these things that change together can stay together and they're not tightly coupled on other items. Small changes you can make every day in the code. And obviously this concept of automated assurance, not going to get deep into testing. That's another fun conversation. There's so many things that we could do with testing, but do you have enough tests in your code where at least if you change things around, if you started to pull it out, you can feel pretty confident? You know, I'm not going to get into a test first topic, but if I've got something, even at a high level, that says, yeah, it all still works, cool. Now I can start moving very quickly and confidently through the rest of the code. So make the change easy, then make the easy change is a very common quote by Kent Beck, but a lot of people forget this line here where he says, warning, this may be hard. But this mindset, make the change easy, even if it's hard, then make the easy change. We're going to be coming back to this in a little bit. This is a very, very important mindset that I've seen help get those dominoes tipping over when we make changes. Okay, so we talked about recognizing code smells, and then if we see a code smell, we should do a refactoring. Again, nice little plug for JetBrains. I've worked it into my contract at some clients that I will be able to use the JetBrains product because the ability to make changes for me is so important. If I see a big chunk of code, I want to be able to extract a method quickly. I want to be able to hit a keyboard shortcut to rename something. I want to move methods into another class. I practice these things with muscle memory doing code katas. And I go back and forth on them, but there's been times where I would do these every morning and I would solve the same problem, because when I'm doing the kata, I'm focusing on my muscle memory, blocking, punching, kicking. It's like dribbling a basketball, shooting 3 points. If you do those things often, when you're in the game, you're not thinking about how to do something, you just do it. If it's not intuitive to you to be able to make a quick change, like extract a method, move methods into another class, rename things, work on those muscle memory skills, because that's going to be the easy part of you making these changes. And just start by yourself, where you can do them so quick that it's not even worth discussing. You look at it, you recognize it, you fix it, you move on. Only twice in my career have I run into scenarios where when I would do that, people had a problem. And in both cases, I wasn't at that company much longer afterwards, because I know I'm a professional, and if I cannot clean up the area that I'm working in, if I can't do a job well, I don't want to do that. It's just not worth it for me. So you start doing these katas. Emily Beisch has a GitHub repo. I've got the link in there as well. You can download all these katas, and they're in every language. So if you want to do Java 6, you want to do Kotlin, you want to, hate life and do it in JavaScript, we can all agree on that, right? You can take any of these languages, and they've got examples in them. So you can do the tennis kata. Gilded Rose is a great example. It's just a big, messy chunk of code. And when you get to the point where you can take that messy chunk of code and you can clean it up in 5 to 15 minutes, you're feeling pretty good. You start to develop these habits. The cue, that's a code smell. The routine, extract method. The reward, a little dopamine kick. I feel so good. I don't have an answer for this one yet. I've just kind of accepted this as one of life's mysteries, but I enjoy it. Every time I look at code, I keep finding better things I could do with it. Sometimes I do too much, undo it, but it's a practice. And I go through this a lot. I find myself very proud about this one area here, even though there's a big old mess over there. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not fixing the entire system. Because what I've seen is when me or other people have gone into a code base, that's the part of the code that the people are going to look at when the next feature comes out. They know there's all this other stuff out here, but if they see some clean stuff, oh, decorator pattern, mediator pattern, strategy pattern, that actually seems a lot like what we're trying to do here. You'll see these things start to pop up more and maybe improve. And there's always going to be these messes over here. It doesn't have to be completely perfect. If Akram calls me up and says he's coming over after the meetup, we're going to have our kitchen and living room cleaned, and we're shutting all the other doors. All right, so now we're kind of thinking about ourselves. Hopefully that's enough. You guys can head off and go, this is the stuff I'm going to work on. But now let's start talking about the team. Team katas as a habit. Paired programming sucks. Mob programming sucks. Why does it suck? Well, because I just want to write the code. I don't want to use words to express what I'm thinking. I don't like when somebody else doesn't know the keyboard shortcut to extract a method. I don't like that somebody uses a mouse so much. Fine. Do those katas as a team. The kata time is a time that you're focused on your mechanics, the way you're using your tools. You're not thinking about, we have to solve this business problem and get it delivered. You're thinking, how do we work well together as a team? The more you do it, all of a sudden it becomes second nature. I've worked with Akram before. We had a plugin, I don't remember what the plugin was in our IntelliJ, but it would show the keyboard shortcuts. So when Akram would hit a keyboard shortcut to do something, I'd see him like, the hell is that? And I would learn. And then I would do something, and Akram would look at that and go, oh, I didn't know that. And then you start talking in keyboard shortcuts, which works really well. I'm forgetting Ben's last name already. What's Ben's name? Bald Ben. Kiefer. Kiefer and I got so quick into naming keyboard shortcuts back and forth. He asked me one time, and I told him Control A, Control D. And just like that, his screen went blank, and he's like, but yeah, find ways to work with your team. I know that we want to divide and conquer. It seems like a better idea if I give each one of you a piece of work and we split up and we get all the things done, and then at the end of our time, we put them all together. The theory of that is great. The theory of better estimates is great. It just doesn't match reality. Because something always pops up. And as soon as one person, one story gets blocked, all these other things don't come together on time. So if you see people trying to be efficient, we got 5 devs on the team, we could probably do 2 stories each. We got 10 things in progress. Yeah, it seems efficient. Resource utilization, look at our people are working, 110% capacity, but we don't actually deliver things. However, well, and then the other issues too is when I'm working on something, I'm asking somebody else for help, they're doing their own thing. So when I submit a PR and somebody else is thinking about their change, they're not thinking about the problem that I solved. They're lazily scanning the code, looking for naming conventions and spacing. Did I solve the problem right? No, but you put your brackets on the other line. Your brackets should always be on the top line. That's as controversial as I'm going to get here. So this idea about this divide and conquer and then all these interruptions that people have, it really slows down flow. Mob ensemble programming, has anybody given that a shot? Okay. Woody Zuhl here, just got to talk to him the other week again. There's something that's really amazing that happens when you get everybody working together and you're all focused on the same problem, and you think our team's responsibility is to get stuff done. We have an opportunity presented to our team. We want to deliver an outcome. If you get everybody together, you're learning from each other, you're focused, you're not having to do the training and lunch and learns later. You don't have somebody going on vacation where they didn't know the code base. You're not arguing over people building with different patterns. You kind of work together as a team, and that really can start building up momentum. So there's some approaches. Now, I've also seen, just like all of the new technical practices we've seen, I've seen people say, we tried pairing, it sucked. I just sat there all day and I didn't do anything. We tried mobbing, it sucked. There's one guy who's just coding the whole time. Okay, well, is it the paired programming? Is it the mobbing that sucks, or is it the way that you implemented it? Because we use words a lot that we don't have shared understanding for. Like, I don't care if you want to kick a hockey puck into a basketball hoop, just don't call it cricket. There are roles here that you can practice. There are things that you can do to actually try these concepts beyond the just throw everybody in a room. And once you start learning those roles, you start finding that there's a lot of stuff that the team can stay busy with. If I'm in a mob with people now and I'm seeing one person doing something and they have to type in the same 3 commands every time, they got 3 make commands. While they're doing that, I'm going to have a new make command that does all 3 of them. So the next time they type in one thing. As they discover something, I'm going to go and update the documentation right then, instead of thinking maybe later we'll do these other things. So there's a lot of flexibility in what people can do to make sure that everything is covered all the time. This is a controversial slide, not because of java.net, but I've had Scrum Masters, I've given this talk a lot. I've had some Scrum Masters find that that's not a nice thing. So I've gone into the Scrum Guide and I pulled out a couple of quotes here. We don't need to read everything, but the basic concept is the sprint plan is created by the collaborative work of the entire team. The whole Scrum team collaborates to define a goal. The backlog is a plan by and for the developers. This isn't something to eviscerate power from the Scrum Master or product owner. This isn't to diminish the roles. They are important roles. I'm glad that we have people on the team. It is not a matter of hierarchy. It is not a case where our Scrum Masters and product owners tell the developers what to do because that's what Agile is. I can guarantee you that is absolutely not how this stuff is meant to be. And I know this because I've gotten to talk to, a lot of these people who have been involved with it. I've met some of the signatories. I've talked to the people. This concept of having a hierarchy where you tell the developers what to do and the developers can't address tech debt, that was never part of the original plan. So one of the biggest things that you can help your team do is focus. So again, we've got tech debt. We've got this messy code base. Where do we even start? This is an older tool here. There's some newer tools I'll mention briefly. But one interesting way to look at our code is you look at the churn. How often is the code changing? And then you look at the complexity. How complex is this code? And instead of trying to look at the entire system saying we have to fix everything, maybe the team focuses on the areas that make the most sense to fix. Like these two areas. It seems like we're changing that code quite a bit. We got to go in there and fix stuff. And it's reasonably complex. All right, let's make sure the next time we're in these pieces of code, we take a little bit of time. We get it cleaned up. This guy over here, don't worry about that little guy. That might be the algorithm in the system, which is so complicated. But you know what? We don't have to touch it. It just works. Fine. The company is making money. It's doing its thing. This thing we change a lot, but it's simple. Let it go. A couple of those other guys, maybe later on. Maybe if we get into it, we try to simplify it. But you don't have to just pick the worst chunk of code and say which file has the most lines. Find the things that it might make sense to focus on. This is a bad screen. I don't care if you actually get into all this. Recently, I've discovered CodeScene. Has anybody heard of CodeScene before? Pretty cool. You can run it on your repo in a local Docker where it does not talk out. It'll go through your code and it will give you a lot of different metrics about the code that you're dealing with. It'll show you the way that the code is laid out, the way that it communicates with itself. It'll show you what are the good parts of the code, objectively, conditional complexity, lines of code, all that stuff. It'll also give you some really neat heat maps where you can even identify who's contributing to that code base. So if I've got a section over here that Josh is always working on, and it's really bad code, that seems like a really good pairing opportunity, especially if Josh is going to be going on vacation. So again, this isn't about blame. It's just finding some different ways to look at what you have to find out how do I want to focus and not get overwhelmed. Make the problem small and then just start executing on them. And CodeScene is something recently that JetBrains has included. I think at this point, all I've noticed is it will identify the smells, but it's not giving you a full report yet. So something worth looking at. And again, if you're overwhelmed with all the things to do, I found success when you come up with a theme of the week. If you know all these things that we have problems with, let's just pick one thing. Globals as parameters, right? We've got all this state, fine. Next time you're in a method, if it has a global value in it, pass it in. Now that's a parameter. Now you've got a static method. And if you have those themes, you're really reducing the problem for everybody. If everybody knows that for this week or this month, if you're in a method and you see a global variable in there, make it a parameter, everybody's doing it. When everybody sees the PRs, nobody's questioning it. And then you can keep kind of building that up. Maybe extract method. Maybe we say we don't want 500 lines of code anymore. Cool. That's just going to be the theme of the week. Pull out the contents of an if statement into another method. Good. You can take all these things that we want to do and little by little start introducing some different changes where people kind of get into the rhythm of it. They learn one thing, they practice it, maybe you do a kata on it, maybe they do it in their code, spend a week or two doing that, one sprint. You're building up those skills for the team. As James Grenning has mentioned, sometimes you just kind of chop it up, make some brute force changes to it. You can see the loops in there. It might not be the perfect way to split the code up, but sometimes you just want to do that. Just start breaking things apart so you can work on things independently. And then we start talking about decoupling dependencies. I realize that this diagram kind of makes me feel old. Anybody else installed car stereos when they were younger? I tried to do that for my son. He has a car and he said the Bluetooth didn't work so good. And I'm like, oh, I've replaced tons of car stereos. So we go to Best Buy and we found a car stereo that has Apple Play and all that stuff. Cool, 200 bucks, cool. And then you need an adapter for the rear view camera, an adapter for the GPS, an adapter for the steering wheel control and all this stuff. And it was gonna be like 750 bucks. But what I had learned when we would, try to pimp our rides, we'd get stereos that were used from a friend who crashed his car, pick them up at a pawn shop, rip the dashboard apart some hot Saturday, hook it all up, and then find out that something doesn't work. And we're like, well, that was a lot of work. And then we had some other friends tell us how they were idiots, how we were idiots, because they had something in the workshop where they could give this power and they could give it an audio source and they could hook it up to a couple of speakers and they could tell, does the stereo work? Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So if I can test the stereo by itself and I can identify all these different points of integrations, I know that the CD player works. I know if I hold the button down for 3 seconds, the radio will be set, preset will work. I can test all these things out before I even plug it in. I've met a lot of teams that would work on the stereo and then they'd have to test everything. Somebody changed the oil, the CD player doesn't work. You laugh, but you've been there. So one of the things that we focus on is how can we isolate our things so at least we know this part is right. And if we learn some other things about power surges or the battery voltage changed, the wire to the speakers got clipped and we're getting a short, that's fine. We want to test that integration, but we don't have to test the CD player every single time we're testing the car. And we've done some other things too. I've worked on teams that have, massive teams for a big website scattered across the globe. And one team said, we're going to build an iframe. And the reason is they wanted to be able to isolate their failures. So the thing that they would break, the thing that they were trying to build would often break, but it was only affecting them. They didn't have to wait until the end of the quarter for the major integration. They built all their stuff independent. They built their own pipeline, and they were making changes multiple times a day. The rest of the teams on the website weren't, but they put in a little bit of time to figure out how can I just build our stuff in isolation, be able to talk to the global state and the eventing and all the other stuff, but they had that part built. And eventually they started to isolate the pipelines as well. So instead of putting everything into one pipeline where you had to test all this stuff at once, they said, we know our part is going to work very well. And then once we integrate, we're going to make sure that the sound comes on When the car starts, if you push the steering wheel buttons, it goes up and down, just a couple of tests and it worked. And this is for, this is a model for the largest app on Apple's store. There's a limit on how big your apps can be, and the team consistently had to keep trying to change the app so it would fit on the Apple store. So some of these things worked in real practice. Just isolate. And this is kind of a code-specific thing, but also just kind of a generic thing that I've changed my views in life. The way we organize is really important. If I'm looking at this bench, it might look like a very well-organized workbench. All the tools are in order. If I need a 10 millimeter, I know where to get my 10 millimeter. You've got all the things. So if I have to do a job, I'm like, okay, I need one of these, one of these, one of these, one of these, one of these. And then I go do the job. And if I notice I'm missing something, I can come back and get it. I've changed how I organize my own garage now. I have go bags. When I'm working on the car, I have a duffel bag with plenty of 10 millimeter wrenches in there. I got my screwdrivers and Band-Aids. I've got another bag for drywall. My kid is young and he puts holes in the wall sometimes. So when that happens, I've got my drywall bag and I've got my toilet bag, you know, when the toilet is leaking. All of them have Band-Aids. I'm not trying to have like the perfect first aid kit. I just know that when I wrap my knuckles, I want to have the things I have there available to me. This kind of goes with our code as well. Views folder, controllers folder, services folder, database folder. We're organizing around the function, but not the actual use. So think about that when you're looking at your code. If you want it to be cohesive, organize it around the thing that it's supposed to do. Yes, this is not the most economic choice. I'm probably going to have Band-Aids in all of them. I'm probably going to have to buy multiple tape measures. But that's fine because I have the stuff that I need when I need it. I'm not optimizing to buy a tool once and only once. All right, now we're going to get into the more fun stakeholder stuff. What are we doing on time here? All right. Anybody familiar with the Peter Principle? I learned about this back my first job at Principal in '98. Principal Financial Group, no relation here. But yeah, people would talk about a certain manager and they said that that person got promoted to their level of incompetence. That person was really good and they got promoted one more time and they weren't doing well. The things that you need to do well at this job probably weren't the same things that you needed to do well down here. And for a while, I was using this concept as a weapon. I would talk, oh, that person's Peter Principled, and I would blame them for it. Over time, I started to realize that most of us have career paths. We like to get bonuses, we like to get titles, we like to get bigger problems that we can solve. Eventually, 50% of the people that we work with are probably newer in their jobs, and they might not be experts at it, right? They're trying out new things. So I say this because as they're in those jobs, they're also facing this typical hierarchical flow. That brown stuff all flows downhill. So you've got a person maybe in charge of a team, maybe in charge of a department, and they're getting pressure. And they're doing their best to try to deal with that, and maybe they haven't found good ways to do that yet. Is that their fault? Is it worth me just blaming them for it and saying management is the reason that we have all these problems? You can, but like in the responsibility process, that's a pretty low mental level to be at, to just blame. So have a little empathy. So again, with Jerry Weinberg here, consulting may be defined as the art of influencing someone at their request. So if you're working with somebody and they know that they might be struggling, maybe they're open to learning more from you. Maybe you see things that they don't, and maybe you have some ideas. So I'm not talking about big C consulting like my card, my business card says consultant. I'm just saying in general, can I help influence that person at their request? If it's not their request, you're inflicting it. Nobody likes having that inflicted. But if you can build relationships with people and give them some different alternatives, help them understand things differently, then those people who have a very strong impact on what you do, those people might help your people have a better experience. And there's some really easy things that we could do here. Visualize wasted time. Again, we go back to the make the change easy, then make the easy change. I've done this and it's fabulous. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on my Kanban diagram, but the basic concept is from our backlog, instead of having in development, what if we have a pre-factoring stage? What if every time the code comes in to your system, you put it in the pre-factoring column? You say, you know what? We're going to look at this. We've learned that we don't like globals. We don't like 2,000 line methods. We want to make the change easy first, because you're going to have to do it anyways, right? So let's just treat that as its separate thing. I'm cleaning the code up right now. Cool, now it's in dev. Make the change easy, make the easy change. Now that we've extracted this into a strategy pattern and we have one new case that we have to build, great. We add that new strategy, we inject it, it works. And then we go through that normal process. I get it. You're probably doing these things anyways. Why does that matter? Because every tool is a weapon if you hold it right. And again, these are just, I never took the time to actually build all the examples in the JIRA because I'm lazy. But a cumulative flow diagram is a really, really fabulous visualization where you can kind of see the different stages through Kanban or through your Scrum columns, and you can start projecting out how long they're going to take. I know the scale isn't the same on these, but this is the same data in both of them. If we make the change easy, notice that the amount of time to make the change easy starts to decrease over time because you've cleaned the code up. You've made the code easier to work in. The amount to make the change, even if that's the same, the overall time it takes to go from here to here is going to reduce. And if you have this, you'll actually start seeing velocity increase. You'll see that the investments that you made have allowed things to go faster. And if you start those changes early, you can show the momentum and you can show people it's not taking us as long to write the stories anymore. And you can point to why, because we're doing the things that we need to do here. This is another real example I went through where I just dumped all the stories and I started to calculate for each story, how much time is it sitting in the developer's seat? And as we started to look through this, we realized our overall process to get something done was not based on how much time it took to write the code. So when people say it's a 5-minute change, that does not mean the story is done. With all other things, this was helpful for a team to start looking at the data that they actually had and wondered, why are these things taking so long, yet we're not working on it that long? And it opened up for some different conversations, not for blame, just making it visible. Work in progress, limiting your WIP. This is another one of the models that I think about a lot. If I'm working on one thing, I'm thinking about one thing 100%. As soon as you give me 2 things to think about, 20% of my time is in context switching. Got to put down the old thing, got to pick up the new thing. That 20% is cumulative. So if you give me 3 things, 40% of my time is lost switching back and forth. What was I doing? Where was the code? How did I get there? What's the problem I'm trying to solve? If you're working on 5 things, 80% of your time is context switching. This goes back to that mobbing concept. If everybody's focused on one thing, you're going to get that thing done. Even if some people have to leave for whatever reason, the work doesn't stop. So if you can find ways to understand how much time is being lost when you try to start so many things, that visualization can actually help people realize maybe we should stop starting and start finishing. And if you're in a position of leadership, get that big brown umbrella out to protect your team. They don't sell them as brown when you buy it, but it'll eventually get brown. And if people don't believe in it, throw a little bit of math at them. Little's law, throughput equals WIP divided by lead time. Feel free to play with these numbers. But again, if you need the influence in having these conversations, talk about math, use the real examples. The less things that you work on at once get done faster. The more things you get done, overall throughput's higher. You get more stuff done. And you don't need a big bang. I've seen teams that have asked for a month off to tackle tech debt, and they would argue about it for quarters, and finally they get the month off and they say, we're going to fix everything, and the month is done and nothing really got changed. Have a lot of small bangs. Just keep the momentum going. Just pick something, fix it, make sure the proof is in the pudding, keep making the small wins, building up the momentum. Understand how your org structure is set up, find out who you've got relationships with. Maybe you don't have a direct influence over here, but if you've got some influence over here, maybe that person can tell that person and that person can tell that person. I like to play games sometimes where I don't use the common terms that are in the industry. I'll make up my own metaphor. And when I hear that person using my metaphor, it's working. Try it, it's fun. But just recognize that you're going to have to find ways to find the people who are willing to work with you, give them a message, but you have to work on the messaging here. I've got these trophies in my office and I never give them out, but I think about them. When I'm done with a meeting, who gets the trophy for most words? Who gets the trophy for the best ideas? And personally for me, this model I think about a lot, like multiple times every day. As a developer, I think about the data, and then I add some information to that, and then I start to make all these connections, how that stuff all works. Finally, I get my insight, this goes to there, and then I can tell you the path. And as a developer, I want to tell you this story like this. I want you to come to the same conclusion as me. I want you to take all that stuff and go, oh yeah, I can see how you arrived at that. That's not what people want. I spend a lot of time trying to get my brain focused to say, what is the problem? What is the solution? And what is the path to get there? It's hard. I try to make it that simple because, well, with all the social media and everything else, people don't have attention spans anymore. I got to make it quick. And then I step back. Instead of forcing the information on them, I tell them the conclusion, and then I sit and I'm prepared. So when they start asking questions, why, I can start telling them, well, because this is connected with that. And then eventually you get another nerd in the room and they want to really get into it. Yeah, but business card. Let's talk about that later. If I've got executives in the room, if I have a manager I'm trying to influence, this stuff makes their eyes glaze over. Two geeks geeking out in a meeting is not something that anybody wants. That was a very uncomfortable laugh. So I think about this a lot. I go from here to here. I dabble in here a little bit to reinforce it. If we need to get into this, that's an offline meeting. But if I want to be in the room to influence the people that have that kind of power, I've got to make it short and simple. And obviously you got to be worried about that part too. All right, so in summary, 3 levels, start with ourselves, get better at the, protect it, learn the code smells, learn to refactor the patterns, build up the muscle, be able to do the things quickly. Don't ask for time to do it, just learn how to do it yourself. It'll speed up. I hate when people see something in the code and they leave a comment and will make a story later. If you know how to change it quickly, just do it. All the things that you've done with yourself, do that with the team, build them up, and then start to isolate your projects. Independent pipelines, you got to lead by example. And finally, with our stakeholders, focus on some things like your WIP and throughput. Find some ways to visualize the problems for them. Make them feel safe that as you're running these experiments, they're small experiments, they're going to have impacts. Build the trust. All right, and that's it. Again, the slides here. I do have all the links to more things if you'd like to talk more. Questions, or does anybody want to tell me about what they're going to do tomorrow to implement all these things and make their teams have rainbows and unicorns? Or does anybody have any questions about getting deeper into any of the areas or proving me wrong? Yeah.
Recommend that everyone start with their self first. Get that instruction before you go to the team, or should they try do some of it simultaneously? And I work on myself, and I'm gonna try to push my team.
The only people that we can control are ourselves, right? So I'm not going to tell you to hit a treadmill when I should be hitting a treadmill myself. It's easy. It's easy to look outward and say, you guys have to change. But the truth is, I need to change first. So I spend a lot of time in that spot. Like, what can I do for myself? And then how can I help influence that around me? That's been my experience, at least. All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments, or even other things that I didn't include here that you found work well? Yes, sir.
The whole team, we're all gonna take an hour off on Friday and work on it kind of thing, so how you feel about that?
That's a fabulous question. I've seen it work in a variety of ways. I've seen it work where people are just opting in, where we do it for fun over our lunch hours or before stand-up. I've seen in scenarios where if I was brought in to help make change, I may need some executive sponsor where they would say, you have 2 hours to spend with Dustin. And at one client, that looked different for every team. One team liked doing it after stand-up before they got stuff started. So they would do 15 minutes every day after stand-up for 4 days or a half hour. Another team wanted to just have Friday afternoons. Another team said, we got 2 hours. They looked at their schedule and they're like, we got planning here, and then there's an hour, and then there's lunch. So they said, I can't get back into work. So we would look at that and find those dead times and get into it. And some people just wanted 2 hours straight. With all those teams, though, it was very common. The first time we would go through Gilded Rose, they would dismiss it. They're like, oh, give us real problems, like not these fake ones. But it would take them 6 hours as a team to work through that. So like, yeah, we could do this in your production code, but now you're thinking about solving the production problem. This is clean. And I would sit with them through this 6 hours as they would stumble their way to try to figure out how to make the changes. And then after that, I would do it once myself, and I would get done in 5 to 15 minutes. And they would see me fly through that, and they go, oh, like people can code like that? Yeah, we all can. But They all do. Actually, if you go to Emily Baish's site, um, if people come up with a kata, they'll send it to her, open source. Other people will take it and write it in, Go, Rust, whatever. And if there's a language up there that isn't supported, I mean, you can find this stuff in COBOL, I think, even. Yeah. Yep, Langer does. So just a lot of simple things. All right. Thank you. Oh, and then you got your raffle, right?
Yeah, we got a few parting words, so. Yep, we got a raffle.
Does anybody from the bank answer your question?
No, I think, yeah, why was it?
Oh, boy. The only one who did. I don't want to guess that.
There you go, William.
Awesome. So you can message Kyle, or right now, you can write your email address.
Give me your email and I'll send you. Yeah.
Maybe one day we can, in a future talk, if you ever have a time, maybe we can pull Gilded Rose and do a kata for the community. See if anyone will be interested. They come with their laptops, do a couple of katas, It'd be fun to see an expert leading the folks to do it, if you're ever interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd probably start with tennis kata is my personal favorite.
Okay.
It's not as bad as Gilded Rose, but
Not as bad in the sense that the problems are not that bad.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. The code isn't as bad, but it's still convoluted. And as you go through it, you can take different approaches. So you can say, we're going to take this code and we're not going to have any if statements in it.
Yep.
So you're like, okay, well, how would I do that? So you start introducing some dictionaries and, yeah, there's a lot of fun things you could do.
We definitely want to do that. Maybe sometime in 2026.
Perfect.
Which is only a few months, because if you don't know, we got a talk already sorted out for September and October, right?
Yep.
And November. But I'm not gonna tell you what they are, because I wanna create excitement. No, not really. I just forgot what they are. I know we got you speaking, Kyle. I know
Next month.
Yeah. So, but I don't know if we were next month or the month after. So yeah. But I'm gonna try to gin up more excitement. Pretend to do that. So thank you, Dustin, for coming on and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. There was a lot of fun stuff there. I'm probably gonna go and download the slide, print it out, and print out 3 that I really want to do this month and just post it on my screen, because I think there was a lot of great nuggets there of wisdom. So
Yeah.
Appreciate you giving your time to help the community. And for everyone here, we still got this place. You can stay as long as you want. We still got some food. We got drinks in the back. Yeah, and if you have questions, you want to come and ask Dustin. He's very kind. He can bore you to death with the details of things that he worked and all the war stories that he has. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everyone who's online. And yeah, that wraps it up.
All right.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.